In this video, we delve into the storyline of a Russian adventure and fantasy movie that has captivated many. The narrative centers on the exhilarating adventures of a man and a magical fish. This film is widely popular in Russia and promises to offer an entertaining experience from start to finish, so make sure to watch the entire video. The movie begins by introducing us to an underwater kingdom where the king of the fish, adorned with a magical ring, communicates with his spy, a frog. The king inquires about the whereabouts of the fish he wishes to marry, but the frog confesses it doesn't know, which angers the king. He commands the frog to search through rivers, streams, and ponds. We then transition to a Russian village where we find the home of a blind blacksmith and his son, Ivan, who is awakened by his dog. Ivan is a kind-hearted yet somewhat naive young man. As he leaves home, his blind father insists that he learn the blacksmith trade, to which Ivan agrees. His father also asks him to catch something to eat. So Ivan takes a bucket and a fishing hook and heads to the river, which is covered in ice. Upon reaching the river, Ivan makes a hole in the ice and lowers his hook. Suddenly, bubbles start forming in the water, and a surprised Ivan steps back, just as a jet of water propels a fish directly into his bucket. Pleased with the easy catch, Ivan heads home, thinking about the meal he will prepare. However, the fish unexpectedly speaks to him, asking not to be cooked. Astonished by the talking fish, Ivan listens as it offers to grant him 3 wishes if he releases it back into the river. Filled with joy, Ivan promises to consider his wishes. As he reflects, he unwittingly expresses a desire to see the entire city without leaving his home. Suddenly, a miraculous event occurs, and his house begins to rise. The fish informs him that his first wish is being granted, leaving Ivan both astonished and excited about the possibilities now open to him. Though Ivan voiced his wish almost thoughtlessly, the fish clarifies that it officially counted as one of his wishes. Before he realizes it, Ivan and his forge, as if part of a carriage, begin to move out of his house. The fish explains that since Ivan wanted to explore the city without leaving his forge, the forge would accompany him on his journey. Despite his disbelief and the cold of winter, Ivan murmurs a wish for warmth and greenery. Instantly, the ice melts away, giving way to a warm spring environment that transforms the landscape into an orchard. The fish then informs him that 2 of his wishes have been fulfilled, leaving him with only 1 wish left. As Ivan carries the fish in the bucket, he reflects on how he has wasted his wishes on trivial things and regrets not having asked for something more significant. The fish responds that each person makes their wishes according to their own view of the world. As they continue their journey, some bandits intercept Ivan, intending to rob him. Finding no money, they attempt to take the fish instead. Ivan seizes a moment of carelessness and manages to escape with the bucket. The bandits chase after him, but with no other option, Ivan decides to release the fish into the river, asking it to stay there where it will be safe. Furious, the bandits hang him upside down from a tree and leave him there. Soon after, a beautiful young woman approaches and helps him get free. Ivan notices a scarf with a fish pattern on her shoulder and realizes that she is the fish transformed into a human. She introduces herself as Jana. To ensure she cannot escape, Ivan takes the scarf and tells her that he still has 1 wish left, which he plans to use at the right moment. Curious, Jana asks about his plans. Ivan reveals that his goal is to marry the daughter of the Russian Tsar. Jana, asking if that will be his 3rd wish, listens as Ivan explains that he intends to achieve this goal on his own, but would appreciate her support. She agrees to help, and the next scene takes us to the Tsar's palace. A maid informs Princess Nancy that an ambassador from England is on his way, news that fills her with joy. Princess Nancy has always dreamed of marrying an Englishman, so she prepares herself with care and urgency. However, King Tsar has a deep dislike for the English and does not want his daughter to marry one. Meanwhile, the ambassador from England arrives, intending to win the king's approval and ask for his daughter's hand in marriage. To this end, he gives Princess Nancy an umbrella, a gift that delights her. But King Tsar is displeased and reprimands the ambassador, accusing the English of only coming with the intent to loot. The ambassador, trying to change the king's perception, presents another gift, hoping it will alter the king's opinion of the English. At that moment, Ivan and Jana arrive at the kingdom. The ambassador is demonstrating a curious device to the king, one that produces music by itself. Unbeknownst to others, there is a man inside the machine who plays the music by pressing a button. As the ambassador demonstrates the device, Ivan and Jana observe from behind the palace walls. Despite the demonstration, the king remains unimpressed and declares that they do not need such a machine. However, Princess Nancy is completely enamored with the English ambassador and wishes to marry him. During a moment of affection, the ambassador begins kissing Nancy's hand, while the king, confused, struggles to convince his daughter otherwise. Just then, Ivan bursts in and suggests to the king that it is unnecessary to marry the princess to an Englishman, as he can bring a machine that plays music by itself. Upon hearing this, the king is delighted, as he is looking for any excuse to prevent his daughter from marrying the Englishman. The king tells Ivan that if he can acquire such a device, he may ask for anything he wants, even if it means marrying the princess. The king agrees to this proposal. The princess, however, was displeased upon hearing this, as she wished to marry the English ambassador and did not appreciate Ivan's interference. She tried to intimidate him, but Ivan remained steadfast in his mission. The king then ordered that Ivan be provided with new clothes and shoes for his quest, as Ivan was poor, and the king wanted to equip him properly for the task. Ivan, whose feet were only covered in worn socks, was overjoyed by the king's offer. Upon leaving, he shared the news with Jana. She warned him that although the musical instrument did exist, it was extremely difficult to obtain. When Ivan asked why, Jana explained that the instrument was in the possession of a creature in the dark forest, and all who had attempted to retrieve it had never returned alive. She revealed that the instrument had peculiar powers. If it played a cheerful melody, it would make people dance non-stop until they collapsed from exhaustion and were devoured by the creature. If it played a sad melody, it would make people cry until they fell asleep, only to meet the same fate. Understanding the danger, Ivan decided to take the risk. Together with Jana, he prepared a bag of food to embark on the search. As they ventured deeper into the dark forest, overcoming difficult paths, they approached their destination. Upon reaching the forest's threshold, Jana informed Ivan that he had to continue alone. As Ivan advanced through the dense forest, he found himself surrounded by skeletons and bones, evidence of those who had attempted this mission before. Suddenly, he heard the creature's voice asking if he, too, sought the musical instrument. Ivan confirmed his intention, and the creature proposed a challenge. If Ivan could withstand the music of the instrument without losing control, it would be his. The creature asked whether he preferred to hear a melody of sadness or joy, and Ivan chose the sad one. To the creature's surprise, the song had no effect on Ivan, who even began to sing along with the melody. Astonished, the creature asked how he knew the song and why it didn't make him sad. Ivan explained that his mother had sung that song to him every day during his childhood, so it had no power over him. Having lost the challenge, the creature confessed to Ivan that it would starve if it gave up the instrument. With compassion, Ivan offered food from his bag, which delighted the creature. Grateful, it not only agreed to hand over the instrument, but also decided to accompany Ivan on his return, saying, "Consider me a friend from now on." On the other side, near the river, Jana waits for Ivan, sitting peacefully. Suddenly, a messenger from the Fish King, a frog, arrives with a message. The Fish King has been searching for Jana everywhere, and wishes for her to come to him immediately to marry. Jana responds firmly, telling the frog to inform the king that she will never marry him. At that moment, Ivan arrives with his cat and the musical instrument, overhearing the conversation between Jana and the frog. Curious, Jana asks Ivan if he finally found the musical instrument. Ivan nods, and shortly after, they both decide to return. On the way back, Ivan mentions to Jana that he understands her rejection of marriage to the Fish King, as he too fled from there. Jana confirms, saying she does not love the king. In the next scene, the action shifts to the palace of King Tsar, where an ambassador from England, now disguised as an ambassador from Italy, tries to persuade the king to allow the marriage of the prince with the princess. The princess recognizes the ambassador and is pleased. However, before he can ask for her hand, Ivan arrives with the musical instrument. At his indication, the cat begins to play joyful melodies, causing everyone in the court to start dancing uncontrollably due to the magical music. Eventually, at Ivan's request, the cat stops playing. Impressed, the king congratulates Ivan on the marvelous instrument and decides that both the cat and the instrument should remain in the palace. Ivan, remembering their agreement, asks the king to fulfill his promise to marry his daughter, Princess Nancy, to him. The king agrees, but Nancy, cunning and proud, only wishes to marry the English ambassador. To avoid marriage with Ivan, she proposes that he undertake a task, one that she believes would be impossible to complete, hoping to rid herself of him forever. Naively, Ivan accepts the challenge, promising to perform any task. Nancy decides that she will tell him what the task is the next day. Later, Ivan meets up with Jana, who, noticing his happiness, asks if his marriage with the princess is already arranged. Ivan responds that it is not, as Nancy has proposed a challenge before agreeing to marry him. "She promised to marry me if I could complete one last task," he says. That night, Princess Nancy went to the warehouse to summon the spirit of her malevolent mother. When the spirit appeared, it asked why she had called it at such an hour. Nancy confessed that she wanted to assign Ivan a task so difficult that he could never complete it, thereby freeing herself from him forever. Her mother suggested a particularly arduous challenge. The next day, following the plan, the princess instructed the ambassador to show the king an incredible machine. This device, when vegetables were inserted, would automatically cut them, and when fruits were added, it would produce juice by itself. What nobody knew was that a person was hidden inside the machine, doing all the work, while everyone believed the machine operated on its own. The ambassador asked the king if he had anything similar in his kingdom. Before the king could answer, Nancy intervened and asked if Ivan could bring something that would serve food automatically and then clean up by itself. The king mentioned that he had heard of a magical tablecloth that could do such things, although he had never seen it. Nancy, with cunning intent, proposed to the king that if Ivan managed to bring such a tablecloth, she would marry him under these conditions. Ivan, accepting the challenge, set off with Jana in search of the legendary magical tablecloth. During their journey, Jana explained that the tablecloth was in the possession of two brothers, Jan and Ron, who had left the city years ago to live in a mountainous region. These brothers had become lazy over time due to the convenience of the tablecloth, which provided them food without any effort. As they continued their journey, Ivan and Jana stopped at the house of an elderly couple who, despite their poverty, deeply loved each other. Jana commented that the love between two people should be like that of a needle and thread, where one is incomplete without the other, reflecting the relationship of the elderly couple. Conversing, they passed through beautiful green fields until they reached the mountainous region, where they finally found the brothers, who were noticeably obese due to their inactivity, sitting among tall cliffs with the magical tablecloth. The brothers, tired of eating, were about to rest when Ivan approached and asked them for the magical tablecloth. This request deeply upset them, and in a fit of anger, they threw a coconut at his head, knocking him unconscious. Jana quickly came to his aid and suggested to the brothers that they look at their reflection in the water. Seeing how much they had changed, resembling animals due to the laziness accumulated over the years, they felt deep sadness and asked Jana for a solution. She advised them to get rid of the magical tablecloth, leave behind their laziness, and start working for their food. The brothers agreed and handed over the tablecloth to Jana, who then left with Ivan, who had by then regained consciousness. As they returned, Ivan, filled with joy at having obtained the tablecloth, began picking flowers from a garden to present to the princess. Jana, however, revealed to him that Nancy didn't genuinely want to marry him and had only given him the task to get rid of him. Ivan, innocent and kind-hearted, refused to believe it and eagerly explained to Jana how he planned to propose to the princess. Ivan's kindness and naivety endeared him to Jana, causing her to fall in love with him, though she chose not to reveal her feelings. Meanwhile, at the palace, the princess and the ambassador were celebrating, confident that Ivan would never return. However, Ivan triumphantly came back and was enthusiastically received by all the inhabitants of the kingdom, who now saw him as a hero. The king, impressed, noted how the people admired and appreciated him. Nancy, however, was furious, as she had never intended to marry Ivan. Desperate, she returned to the warehouse to summon her mother's spirit once again, seeking another plan to avoid the marriage. The wicked mother revealed another risky scheme. The next day, in the presence of everyone in court, Nancy told the king that she was willing to marry, but would only do so with her mother's blessing. Therefore, Ivan must venture into the dark world to obtain her mother's permission for the marriage. Upon hearing this, the king understood that his daughter was setting impossible obstacles for Ivan to avoid the marriage, as going to the dark world and returning alive was an impossible feat. Both the king and Ivan felt discouraged by this complicated task, but Ivan accepted the challenge. He then turned to Jana, who warned him that going to that place was like entering the mouth of death, as it was a world apart. Ivan asked how he could get there and decided to go alone, but Jana explained that he must first cross a dark forest and a black river full of dangers and fog. The next day, Ivan set out with Jana for that other world, but first, they visited his blind father. Not knowing if he would return, Ivan heard his father's voice, a blacksmith who worked with difficulty due to his blindness. The father expressed his sadness for not having heard his son's voice in days, and his inability to search for him. Jana and Ivan were saddened to see his condition, and Ivan regretted having left his father in such a state. He asked for his father's forgiveness and received his blessing for the journey. Later, Ivan told Jana that although he had squandered 2 of his wishes, he wanted the third to be to cure his father's eyes. Jana granted this wish, and his father's eyes were miraculously restored as he continued working in the forge. Upon arriving at the river, Ivan reminded Jana that he had fulfilled her 3 wishes and given her much support, but he didn't want to cause her more trouble. So he decided to continue the journey alone. He then handed her his fisherman's scarf and set her free. However, Jana responds that she still cannot understand why Ivan sees their relationship as anything less than a thread joined to a needle, inseparable, and that she cannot leave him alone in difficult times. She asks him to realize that once he succeeds in his quest, they can be together. Despite Ivan's continued inability to fully grasp the depth of her love for him, Jana chooses to accompany him. Without openly expressing her feelings, she gets on the boat with him, and together they move along the river. As they venture deeper, they notice statues of death messengers scattered around, signaling their entry into the dark zone. They stop the boat and disembark in a mysterious valley, where Ivan comments on the strangeness of the place. Suddenly, the guardian of the world approaches them, surprised by their arrival. When asked how they got there, Jana calmly replies that she came with Ivan, leaving him astonished. The Guardian then reveals that Jana is actually his daughter and explains that he had turned her into a fish so that she could learn and experience the world. Jana clarifies that they have come to retrieve the queen's soul. The Guardian explains that the queen was a cruel and cunning woman who married the king to gain power and oppress the poor, and as a result, her soul is being punished in this world, condemned to eternal hunger. At the Guardian's command, the queen's tormented soul appears before them. Initially, she refuses to give her consent for the marriage. Seeing the situation, Jana's father intervenes, showing the queen food and explaining that her torment will only end if she agrees to the marriage. Under this pressure, the queen finally grants her permission. The scene then shifts to the palace of King Jar, where Nancy and a diplomat are enjoying a feast, while the king watches on sadly. Suddenly, the queen's soul appeared on a platter, publicly announcing her consent to the marriage, filling the king with joy, though Nancy was perplexed to see that Ivan had completed the difficult task. Meanwhile, in the dark world, Jana thanked her father and returned to the boat with Ivan, ready to go back. Along the way, she told Ivan that he had completed the most difficult task of all. "You don't need me anymore, so forget about me. You'll end up marrying the princess anyway," she said with resignation. But Ivan replied, "I can't forget you, and I don't want to." Jana, with a mix of sadness and resignation, reminded him that those who returned from that place were destined to lose their memories. Elsewhere, Nancy, consumed by anger, entered the storage room to destroy the chair with which she invoked her mother's spirit. Her mother revealed that she had been forced to allow Ivan certain freedoms under coercion, but she confessed that she possessed a secret that could solve all Nancy's problems. When asked what it was, her mother explained that Ivan had not acted alone in his feats. A magical fish had helped him throughout, and in their kingdom, the use of magic was punishable by death. Meanwhile, Ivan and Jana continued their journey down the river. At dawn, when Ivan woke up, he found his boat on the shore, and all his memories of Jana had disappeared. When he asked who she was, Jana simply replied, "I am just the one who steers the boat." Ivan got off the boat, feeling he was forgetting something important. Upon arriving where Nancy was, Ivan told her that although he had completed all his tasks, he had fallen in love with someone else, though he could not remember who. Nancy, cunningly inquiring if he had completed his tasks alone, learned that Ivan had always had magical help, though he could not remember from whom. Upon hearing about the magic, Nancy ordered the soldiers to arrest him, as in her kingdom, this was punishable by death. Ivan was stunned. He couldn't believe that the person for whom he had risked so much would betray him in such a way. The next day, as they were blindfolding him for execution, Jana suddenly arrived and offered her freedom in exchange for Ivan's. She gave Nancy a scarf with fish scales, a symbol of her own magic. Moved, Nancy accepted the deal and canceled Ivan's execution. After saving Ivan, power and arrogance took over Nancy, who decided to imprison her own father and proclaim herself queen. Once crowned, she confessed to Jana that her first wish had been fulfilled, and now she wished for the Prince of England to propose to her. Thanks to Jana's magic, English soldiers arrived with a marriage proposal from their prince, upon which the English ambassador, a former lover of Nancy, felt betrayed. Nancy, without hesitation, relegated him to cleaning duties in the palace. On the other hand, Ivan wandered disoriented through the places he had visited with Jana, unable to remember anything clearly. During a nighttime visit to his father, he encountered John and Ron, who had lost weight from physical exertion. His father reminded him that the last time he had been there, it was with Jana. Upon seeing a thread and needle in John's hands, all his memories with Jana returned. Determined to reclaim his love, Ivan, helped by his father and the brothers, broke down the palace doors, confronting Nancy. Ivan demanded Jana's release, threatening to retaliate against the soldiers if she did not comply. Nancy, ever calculating, proposed that Jana fulfill a third wish to turn her into a sorceress like herself. Jana fulfilled the wish, but with an unexpected twist, Nancy turned into a fish. Trying to reverse the transformation, Nancy discovered that she could not use magic for her own benefit. At that moment, water from a nearby well began to flow, and the Fish King emerged, mistaking Nancy for Jana and taking her underwater to marry her. Freed from Nancy, everyone celebrated. Ivan's father was released and reinstated as king, while Ivan and Jana finally declared their love for each other and decided to live together, thus closing this fantastic tale full of magic and adventures.